Well, welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. So I thought it would be a fun video to talk about my dream CGC 9.8 collection. Because, like on the channel here, we talk a lot about like 1980s, 1990s, and kind of modern CGC 9.8s, maybe late 70s too. But there's some great comic books in sort of mid-70s, early 70s, late 60s, I think, where there's still some CGC 9.8s out there, but they're just really expensive, kind of out of my budget. So I just thought it would be a good video to kind of think about all those comics in that era that we don't talk about too much and put together kind of a dream CGC 9.8 kind of comic book portfolio, sort of. And I think it'd be really cool to just look on the census and see how many CGC 9.8s of these books that there are, like Hulk 181 and stuff like that. So, we're going to get into them all. And this video, it's kind of like, sort of like my late Silver Age, Bronze Age comic book picks. And like I said, we don't get into that too much on the channel. So it'll be some books that we normally don't talk about, which is definitely cool. Now let's get right into the list here of, my dream CGC 9.8 collection. And one thing to mention too, like, obviously, like, Amazing Fantasy 15 and some of these early Silver Age books, and, like, Golden Age books even, like, First Batman, stuff like that. I'm not going to do that. I don't even think there's any 9.8s in existence anyways on most of those books, but, so still kind of keeping it somewhat realistic. Like, there's still some interesting CGC 9.8 ratios to look at in this list, for sure. So, first comic book on the list is a comic book I love so much, and it's probably the comic book I like the most without actually having a copy of it. So it's a Batman 251 from 1973, classic Neil Adams Joker cover. So in the CGC 9.8, this would just be a dream to have. And I think I did see one on eBay like pop up a long time ago, and I don't remember exactly what happened with that listing, but I think I did see one on eBay before. But there are 24 CGC 9.8s out there in the blue label in the world of this thing, the Batman 251. Yeah, such a classic Neil Adams cover. So the CGC 9.8 ratios are interesting from this era. 1.37% on Batman 251. So of all graded copies, 1.37% of them are CGC 9.8s, and there's only 24 out there. So a very rare one, only 24. And yeah, mentioning that one on eBay that I did see maybe over a year ago now, I felt like the price was like $7,000 or $8,000. And yeah, pricing for these books, because there's not a lot of pricing information on them. So I'm going just sort of what I heard, and I have heard this book going for around $10,000. Somebody had told me that that's about the price for this book in the CGC 9.8, and that kind of makes sense. Yeah, that's sort of right around that price range. If maybe you get a really good deal on like an Amazing Spider-Man 129 for Punisher. But I think maybe if you get a good deal on this, it could be more closer to maybe 7 or 8, possibly. Only 24 out there, but Batman 251 is definitely on, like, just to have one of these in perfect condition from a book from 1973 with the classic Neil Adams Joker cover. Being a huge Batman fan, this is one I thought of right away to be on my dream CGC 9.8 collection list. So yeah, cool one to look at. Next one on the list, Detective Comics 359. And I love this cover with, just the cute Batgirl cover. And Barbara Gordon Batgirl is very classic. And, her sort of character reoccurs all throughout Batman. And I just think this is a classic cover. I actually thought of this one possibly leaving it off the list. It's a late 60s book. So this is the oldest book on the list, kind of that we'll talk about. So it's getting into that range where there's pretty much no 9.8s because the books are so old. There's 4 CGC 9.8s in the blue label, 0.21% being the CGC 9.8 ratio, so we're getting into not less than a percentage point, 1%. So extremely rare, obviously only 4 on the planet. For this book though, obviously completely realistic to buy. I always, usually in my budget, these kind of books are sort of in the 7 to 8.5 range. For a book like this, usually matches my budget. So Detective Comics 359 and an 8. Maybe you can be really patient and find a nice White Pages copy like that. This actually in the 60s, White Pages just is probably going to be so tough to find. But yeah, I think this book around that sort of 7 to 8 range, CGC 9.87 or 8, or CGC 7 or 8. I'm so used to saying CGC 9.8. And prices on this one, honestly, I just have it as a question mark. Like I didn't see any completed listings on eBay. And I would think there's only 4 on the planet, and there's got to be a couple really rich people out there that could be interested in the first Barbara Gordon Batgirl, first Batgirl ever, and probably would pay, I don't know, over $50,000 for that. I'd say absolutely, probably, yeah. Especially when you see like, you know, Amazing Fantasy 15s where they've gone in price, like not obviously 9.8s, but a 9.8 in a Detective Comics 359, I bet is over $50,000 for sure. Probably over $100,000 to be honest. So next book is one I didn't want to leave off the list. Yeah, Incredible Hulk 181. Yeah, first full appearance of Wolverine and the classic cover, classic Herb Trimpe cover. And this book's from 1974. This book. So again, kind of we're right before our sort of range where for me I really like to collect because the 9.8s are pretty affordable. But 123 CGC 9.8s in the blue label for this one. I mean, this is the most popular book in the Bronze Age, let's call it. So 123 in the CGC 9.8 is kind of a lot for that era, but it's so popular, so well collected. 1.2%, the CGC 9.8 ratio, extremely low. So yeah, of all graded copies, only 1.2% of them are CGC 9.8. Price for this one, I'm pretty sure in the CGC 9.8, like this one's going for around $30,000 now, I think. Maybe $25,000. I think it could be even more. To be honest, I think it could be even more. Yeah, the CGC 9.8 might be even more at this point with Hulk 181 being how it heated up so much. And for good reason, I think, you know, some maybe more value-oriented buyers might say, oh, Incredible Hulk has went up too much and this and that. But I think especially, you know, maybe if you're a big game hunter out there and you're maybe looking for this in the CGC 9.8 seriously, this is one to consider because that 1.2% CGC 9.8 ratio is pretty low. So regardless of if this book is rare or not, like a lot of people say it's well printed. In the CGC 9.8, compared to some of the other books we'll look at, it is pretty rare. That's one of the lower ratios. 1.2% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8. So a lot of these graded 123 9.8s in the blue label. Such a classic. Next book is definitely a classic too that you don't want to leave. I don't want to leave off my dream CGC 9.8 list. Giant Size X-Men #1. Yeah, first appearance of the new X-Men. Second appearance of Wolverine. I think it's first appearance of Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, I believe. Maybe a couple others in there I'm missing. It came out in 1975. So there's 179 CGC 9.8s out there. And 2.2% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. So of all graded copies, 2.2%. Where Incredible Hulk 181, 1.2%. So it's a little more rare in the CGC 9.8. So it kind of makes sense that Hulk's a little bit more money. First Wolverine's a little bit more money than the Giant Size X-Men in the CGC 9.8. And it is pretty much, with the prices with Giant Size X-Men, I think it's sort of anywhere from like 12 to 15,000, I would think. Maybe 10 to 15,000. You might get someone that'll want to get rid of it and just want a quick 10 grand maybe in a CGC 9.8. And you know, this being in that 10 to 15 grand with Incredible Hulk 181 being a little bit more rare in the CGC 9.8, you can maybe understand why that's 25 to 30 grand. But a lot of money for these books, and yeah, you definitely, the new X-Men is, you know, I'm so familiar with it from the comic books growing up and watching X-Men animated series, which was one of my favorite shows growing up when, you know, I was like 8 or 9 years old or whatever it might have been. So just to get the first appearance of the classic X-Men is definitely on my dream CGC 9.8 list. And we'll get into some honorable mentions too, but the last one I want to get into in kind of detail is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 in the first print, of course, if I was dreaming here. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 is one of those, obviously it was a kind of a Mirage publication, so not a Marvel or DC book. And there wasn't a lot printed of this first print. There's 27 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. And 3.5% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. So of all graded copies, 3.5% of them are CGC 9.8s. And that's a bit skewed with that CGC 9.8 ratio because there's only 27 of them out there, and it was such a low print run for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. Yeah, it's the first appearance of Ninja Turtles and Shredder in the low print, first print, if we're going that way. Yeah, only 27 of them in the CGC 9.8. And I did see a third print in the CGC 9.8. Actually, it sold like 2 weeks ago, and it was on, we put it on a pricing video, and it was like $1,380 or something like that for the third print, TMNT1. And I was kind of hitting myself on that video for maybe not just pulling the trigger there, because that is a huge book, and that's pretty rare as well. Same thing, but the third print, and those are becoming more collected. But the first print's the Holy Grail. And I was looking through my Overstreet price guide from, I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, so we'll go, 2017 this would have been priced. But a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles CGC 9.8 sold for $38,240. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 CGC 9.8. So, and that was in 2017 in a probably pretty heavily promoted type of auction that wasn't on eBay or anything like that. So, $38,240. There was one on eBay I talked about that was $100,000 or best offer. And I didn't know what that ended up going for, but I know other people have done podcasts on it, and it did sell. So I think it really sold like over 50,000. I'm pretty sure. So crazy prices on these. I think some of these are still for me. Like I don't really think about getting them, so that's why I'm just dreaming of getting them in this video. But let's get into some honorable mentions here, and I want to just talk about first is Amazing Spider-Man 300. In the CGC 9.8 white pages, and I got 2 of them. Yeah, just so lucky to track down 2 of these. And this is a book, I really, when I didn't know much about 9.8s, I really dreamed about getting kind of this book especially, and other Todd McFarlane covers, like Hulk 340 and Batman 423 come to mind. Those 3 books, I got the 2 Amazing Spider-Man 300s here. Were books that I dreamed about getting, and so I'm so happy to have 2 of these. So still, such a rare book in the CGC 9.8, and kind of CGC 9.8s are about $1,750 to $2,000, I would say, depending on kind of the eye appeal of the cover. And luckily both of mine are just amazing. They're both just perfectly centered, amazing colors. So next book, I did bring out X-Men 121 because book that I dream about having, and maybe it's a little more close to attainable, is an X-Men 120, which is so extremely rare in the CGC 9.8. I didn't get the ratio for that, but I think it's like 3.5%. It's ridiculously rare for, a book that came out like 1979. Is it? Yeah, 79. So kind of coming up on the 80s, that is really, really rare for a CGC 9.8. Amazing Spider-Man 300, being such a rare book in the late 80s, is a 5.8% CGC 9.8 ratio. So at 3.5%, even lower, it's even more rare in the CGC 9.8 than Amazing Spider-Man 300, is Uncanny X-Men 120. It's kind of the first cameo of Alpha Flight, and it's the first, Vindicator, too. Weapon Alpha kind of becomes, or Weapon Weapon Alpha becomes Vindicator. But it's just really rare as well in the CGC 9.8. Great cover, and this one's more affordable because it's not as rare. The ratio in this one is 13-ish% or 14% CGC 9.8 ratio. So a good example, it just goes to show you, the prices are totally correlated to how low the CGC 9.8 ratio is, or how rare it is in the CGC 9.8. It's just another way of saying that. So, one I could have easily had on the dream list, Iron Man 55, first appearance of Thanos. And Drax, I believe, first appearance of Drax. Yeah, and there's 78 of these in the CGC 9.8. Just looked on the census quick to see 2.2% is the CGC 9.8 ratio, which is identical to Giant Size X-Men #1. So in CGC 9.8, the rarity is equal to Giant Size X-Men #1, which is pretty cool. And there's less of them in the CGC 9.8. But somebody had sort of mentioned to me that this book was cooling off in the CGC 9.8 around 7,000, 6,000 to 7,000. was like a good deal apparently. And this might have been, 4 or 5 months ago. And obviously just kind of hearing this through the grapevine. I didn't see any completed listings on eBay of this one, but maybe 7,000 to 10,000 for this. It's, the same rarity as Giant Size X-Men, which goes over 10,000, I would say. So I'll probably get it for a little bit less, being, villains maybe going for a little bit less than the first new X-Men team, which are heroes. But Iron Man 55, one to consider. Amazing Spider-Man 129, first appearance of Punisher. Such a cool cover. And this one and Hulk 181 are really kind of neck and neck in comparability, because the CGC 9.8 ratio is almost identical. This is like the value version of Incredible Hulk 181, because in this sort of world, I think, because 137 CGC 9.8s in the blue label, 1.3% is the CGC 9.8 ratio, so Hulk's is 1.2%, so they're both identically rare in the CGC 9.8. Yet, Amazing Spider-Man 129, I think one on eBay sold for like 13,000. Yeah, it was 13,100, I think it was, if I remember. Whereas a Hulk 181 pretty much looks exactly the same on the census, is like, I think 25 to 30,000, I'm pretty sure. So maybe even more, to be honest. So, Amazing Spider-Man 129 does kind of stand out as, again, you still get an iconic first appearance of a big hero, but not as expensive as Hulk 181, but almost just as cool for sure. And, I think that sort of 10 to 13,000, I think, is a decent deal in this. Yeah, $10,000 to 13,000 bucks. And just talking all US dollar prices too. So, next one on the honorable mentions, Uncanny, or X-Men 94. We'll just go to X-Men 94 now. There's only 33 of these in the CGC 9.8, X-Men 94 being kind of the same age as Giant Size X-Men, the book, same type of book. This being, it's like the first new X-Men in the Uncanny X-Men run. And, second appearance of, like, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler. Third appearance of Wolverine, maybe, I think. Really cool cover. But, the CGC 9.8 ratio on this one is 0.56%. So not even 1%, like we're getting in below. So 0.56% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8, so there's only 33 out there. So X-Men 94, I think, is maybe, if you're really, if you got this type of money, this could be maybe the undervalued one to go for in the CGC 9.8 because it's so rare. 0.56% of all graded copies, whereas all these other ones are kind of 2%, 1%, 3%. So we're getting below 1% in rarity. So wow, such a rare book for kind of the age. So that one kind of sticks out in honorable mentions. Last one is kind of actually an attainable one, possibly. I'll end on Marvel Preview number 4. It's the first full Star-Lord. So I got that, it's Marvel Spotlight number 6, the first comic book appearance of Star-Lord. This is the first overall origin and first appearance of Star-Lord in a magazine, Marvel Preview number 4 from 1976. And there's 86 CGC 9.8s on this one, and the CGC 9.8 ratio is 8%. So this is not as rare as any of these books that we just talked about. So it's more attainable in that way. Because on Go Collect, actually, they got the CGC 9.8 value 1,750. So this is somewhat attainable, obviously. And if Star-Lord somehow becomes sort of the most popular Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe, somehow, and then, Guardians of the Galaxy maybe become sort of the next X-Men, maybe? Could this be Marvel Preview number 4 might, have a chance to do really good, considering, like, how good the first appearance of Wolverine and the first appearance of X-Men have done. So this could be one, even though it's not as rare in the CGC 9.8, so you can't really expect anything, for this to get up to the prices of those Hulk 181 or Giant Size X-Men. But, I think Marvel Preview number 4 at 1,750, pretty rare with 86 out there in the CGC 9.8. Like, that could be, kind of one to go after if you're a big Guardians of the Galaxy fan. And for me, with that 1,750 price, still really expensive, but, one that is maybe becoming attainable at some point, but not sure I'm really hunting that book, to be honest. But, okay, that'll wrap it up for the honorable mentions, too. So, I think a good video here, and just to talk about this kind of Silver Age and Bronze Age where I don't, kind of late Silver Age, but we don't talk too much. We're talking mostly about 80s and 90s books on the channel most of the time, and modern books. So yeah, top picks. Definitely my two first, Batman 251 and Detective Comics 359. Those are just two books that really stick out, that if I ever went into this era of comics, those would be kind of the two first Batman books I would buy. So yeah, definitely have to be on my journey. And I don't really expect to ever buy these in the CGC 9.8, but if I do ever get into them, whether it's an 8 or 8.5 or whatever. But two great DC Batman books, I think. And like Hulk 181, Giant Size X-Men, definitely didn't want to leave them off the list. And I think they're just so classic. And maybe if you're on a budget, Hulk 180 could be a budget version of these books. But I don't think you should go against having these. Like, if you're really serious about buying investing in books of this era, I think you want to have a Hulk 181 and a Giant Size X-Men. Yeah, they're still great books to have. And Amazing Spider-Man 129 in the honorable mentions is a fantastic book. Yeah, it's like the value version of Incredible Hulk 181, I would say. And Iron Man 55, I think, is kind of cooling off right now. Like, all these movies with Thanos, and I had people mention to me that, wow, like, I think maybe some of the CGC 9.8s even went over 10,000 during all the Avengers movies. But now, if my sort of source was correct, maybe it's going for 6,000 to 7,000 in the CGC 9.8, maybe even a little bit lower. So that could be one to consider now, considering that, yeah, the prices were a lot higher. And then maybe the top pick of them all is honestly maybe X-Men 94. If, focusing specifically in the CGC 9.8, it's just extremely rare in the CGC 9.8, rarer than any book, every book we talked about with that 0.56 CGC 9.8 ratio, and 33 of them out there in the CGC 9.8. So wow, if you could ever get your hands on one of those 33, if you're, maybe you're just coming at it from a pure investment perspective, maybe you're like a hedge fund manager and you got too much money lying around. I mean, an X-Men 94 CGC 9.8. For me, yeah, like price on that one, hopefully it's about, I would imagine it's probably about the same price as Giant Size X-Men, number one. Maybe even more in the CGC 9.8 given this ratio and rarity. So, yeah, maybe if you could buy an X-Men 94 in the CGC 9.8 from anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, I think is going to be a good deal. Yeah, looking down the road, like, everyone's going to be looking at the rarity in the CGC 9.8 and 0.56 of all graded copies. That Detective Comics 359, the Batgirl one, was more rare, but that's a 1967 book, so that's a whole nother era. But X-Men 94, wow, so rare for the era. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Yeah, really cool to kind of talk about some, kind of late Silver Age, Bronze Age books. And do I ever plan to kind of purchase these type of books of this era? I think I still kind of get more joy of buying CGC 9.8s that I'm nostalgic from when I was a kid. Yeah, that's the big tip for me, I think, is that, I still like getting these multiples and triples of all of the books that I really, really wanted when I was young, whereas Hulk 181, I can't even remember that cover from when I was young. I don't remember that book at all. Amazing Fantasy 15, I remember that cover, but, I was mostly collecting before the internet, really, before, you could just get all these covers and a lot of information right away. So, yeah, I think, if I ever get into, buying, Bronze Age, Silver Age books, I don't expect to sort of get the CGC 9.8s or anything, but I think right now, yeah, just sticking to the 80s, 90s, and that nostalgia value is kind of everything to me, I guess, and since I can afford the CGC 9.8s, it just makes more sense that way for now, but yeah, you never know. I think every day I'm getting more into these classic books because I'm, seeing them more, every day and every year that goes on that I'm more and more into comic books, so. Okay, thanks so much for watching today, though. If you haven't already, I invite you to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8. Hit the bell to get all the latest notifications for videos, and add me on Instagram and Twitter, too. Yeah, all the links in the description below for all that. But yeah, thanks so much for watching today, and good to get talking about some of these Bronze Age and Silver Age books, I think. So I think we're due for some more videos on these topics, kind of. But interesting to see these 9.8s too. Yeah, I had no real idea of how many 9.8s there were of like Hulk 181 until early this morning, just doing my research. So kind of cool. Yeah, like kind of over 100 of Hulk 181 and Giant Size X-Men in CGC 9.8. So that's kind of cool. But thanks so much for watching today. I really appreciate all the support and awesome messages on Instagram too. So yeah, definitely message me on Instagram if you have any questions or just want to talk some comics. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.